you really get into like the storytelling in your fire art, which I love. That was one of the first things I've heard about you, is that you really get into the storytelling of your craft.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, with Mythmaker, it came from, like, ancient storytelling, like, traditions, things like that. So, I mean, for Mythmaker, fire dancing is just one of the colors on the palette, is one of the ways that I like to explain it. It's, with music and art and story and costume, fire is like red on the palette kind of thing. And so with Burning Man and being a fire conclave here, we're more of a sacred theater ritual troupe that weaves fire with our storytelling. So from the roots of what we've created, the story is the foundation, the story is the base, and that. So yeah, it's intention and storytelling, and then fire is the accent to tell the story.
Take me through the story that you're telling this year in your performance that you did last night at the Man.
So this year, with the theme of metamorphosis, we brought forth the story of the shapeshifter, taking from like ancient Celtic tradition and ceremony, and working with the ancient ideas, the animistic, roots from many cultures of being able to take on the form of an animal, whether that's consciously or perceptually or physically, that whole shape-shifting and the channeling of like animal spirits and like totemic guides. And so we just really wove that with our story this year, and we've got the ravens, we've got owls, we've got wolves, and we've got serpents that all weave together, and each of them have their deity that kind of symbolizes the manifestation of that energy that weaves into this cauldron, which is another universal symbol in shamanic traditions. And so they all give their gifts into the cauldron, and then the seeker, I come out as the seeker, as the deer during the wolf scene, and I'm hunted by the wolf pack, and then my antlers are severed in my sword battle with the alpha wolf, and that's the symbolic shamanic death and rebirth. And then I drink the cauldron, and as I drink the cauldron, they bring out this big antlered wolf helm that's like got huge elk antlers on it and a big wolf mask, and then it's kind of the symbolism of all those animals merging together and inspiring the human form into another level of consciousness or a different way of perceiving the world. And then they fire breathe my big flaming antlers on, and this council of elders comes out of those that have been initiated before. And it's kind of an ancient story of the tagline underneath Shapeshifter. For a while we had the journey of the shaman, which is this universal like journey of consciousness and awareness that we brought with our version of metamorphosis through the Shapeshifter story.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know you had a lot of custom fire props that you had to do to pull this off, especially like your wolves had the big Wolverine-like claws.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we really enjoy in Mythmaker is every year we kind of try and make something new. Like the Viking year, we did a whole Viking themed show, and we built fire shields, and we had a whole flaming shield wall. And then last year we had a dragon theme, and we built like giant aluminum dragon puppets that took like 5 people to run, like flaming dragons in the sky. And then this year with the wolves, we had the wolf claws. And one of the nice surprises that was really interesting, one of my main designers, Drew Zeller, he was designing a lot of the crescent moon. We wanted the triple goddess and the horn god symbol and those crescent moon and full moon symbols. And then once we had them welded and designed and wicked up, we were kind of looking at them, and I was like, what if we put 2 of those crescent moons on a staff and like spun it like a dragon? And he was like, I don't know if that'd work, but let's check it out. And he mounted the 2 crescent moons that were just supposed to be 15-foot high poles in the air to have that symbol. And when he mounted them, they balanced perfectly, and they're really heavy, but they spin like a dragon staff. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of an accidental invention of the moon dragon, we've been calling it, and it's the only one that we know of in existence. And it's really epic when it comes out, and it's 2 giant flaming crescent moons spun like a dragon staff. And it kind of definitely gets a response when we pull that prop out. But it's always fun making new props.
I think you did a perfect visual description of it for people who know what a dragon staff is. But if you
Thanks.
still listen to this podcast, they probably do.
Yeah.
If not, you definitely should check them out. They're an amazing prop. That happened very similar myself when I built my Star Dragon, which is the 10-foot triangle-headed dragon staff, and that only came about because I had to build a Elder Dragon, which was just a standard giant dragon to hold space for an arena show, and then triangles kind of came into my life, and that attached instantly, and it seemed like it was so obvious once it was made.
Yeah.
But then, when you're the first to do that, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's neat when those things come through, and sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's just, going with the flow and spontaneity and having that creative moment of like, ooh, we have 4 of these, what if we merge those together with another thing, and all of a sudden, innovation.
Have you had any ideas that you pulled off that were almost maybe too big or too hard to accomplish?
The dragon last year was kind of crazy, and it was a 21-foot wide articulating aluminum dragon frame with full screen printing metal screen printing mesh in between the wings and stuff like that, and we wicked the whole thing. And not for the conclave show, but for outside of the conclave, we rigged a fire, like a flamethrower, into her mouth, and we called her Illuminatrix, the golden dragon of illumination. So on one hand, it had the metaphysical aspect of bringing that ritual, that symbolism of illumination, but then it was also a kind of a pun because it was the A in the illumination because she was made out of aluminum. Mm-hmm. So she was the aluminum dragon. And it took
aluminium dragon?
Yeah. So it took 5 people to run that. And when we lit her up the first time, we lit her up in a park in Vancouver, and I was waiting for the fire department to show up and, waiting for them to be like, you don't have a permit for that, do you? Because we don't give permits for stuff like that. Because it looked like a 747 had crashed in the park when we had her up. It was huge and had a life of its own. And, there was a moment where I was like, oh, did we go a little too big with this one? But the crew was great, and, the boys had the poles and, ran her really well, and she's phenomenal. And now we have her on the big dragon ship on top of our bus. And, this year with activating the stage in our camp, we've kind of taken a lot of the years of Mythmaker in the past and woven it into our camp and our stage. So we've got the Viking ship with all the shields from the Viking year, and then the big dragon from the dragon year. And, and now we have a place to perform here on Playa. So it's been a level up and an evolution for us this year. It's been a metamorphosis for us this year here at Burning Man.
Excellent. And I'd love to see that you're one of the founding members and key members here for the Fire Village that we all kind of build our camps around. Mm-hmm. And it's nice that there's a central block at Burning Man where people can definitely find some fire every night, it seems.
Yeah, it's something we've been working on. Curtis from Hellfire and I started the actual Fire Village a couple years ago, and we did that for a few years. And then now Kevin, one of the main photographers for Burning Man, approached me last year when we had our own Mythmaker camp and said, why don't we do a photographer and fire village where I'll bring the photographers, you bring the fire, and we'll just weave it together in that way. So I think our camp is about 100 people, and the village is close to 400 altogether, and we've called it Flash and Burn, and it's kind of the photographers and some of the fire spinners of the Burning Man scene.
That's excellent. And you come all the way from Vancouver. Do you run this stage show back home all the time?
Yeah, we come north of the wall, as we say, the Canadian wildlings. And I keep and store my tour bus here in America now, just because it's hard to find a place in Vancouver and crossing the border, and I mostly use my bus for Burning Man and things like that. So the crew's based out of Vancouver, and we start in March, and it's a real community. It's a real Viking gypsy tribe. We're friends, we're family. It's a little it's more than just showing up and spinning fire together as performers. We're really building community, and that's kind of my inspiration, my interaction with Burning Man is ever since I was a child, for some reason, I had this kind of post-apocalyptic mindset where, at some point, all this might not be as organized as we built it for these, centuries and generations. And so when I came to Burning Man, I was like, wow, this is training grounds for the apocalypse. This is how to build and seed a new culture, whether it's by the fall of the old culture or just inspiring something new. And so that's the thing that really brings me back time and time again, is the way people learn, people grow, and it builds that community, it builds that family in a way that nothing else really does. I always tell people we're coming to to live a story, to live a film. It's not a festival. It's not a party. It's an adventure. You're going to throw the ring in Mount Doom. There's going to be some parties along the way, but I mean, you're going to cry, you're going to melt, you're going to reform yourself, and that's, if you didn't, maybe you didn't do it right, And coming all the way from Canada, we're not a couple hour drive from San Francisco. We take 3 days on a full 20-person adventure. We have a 5-car caravan. Like, it's very much like old nomadic gypsy style that we're, the adventure here is half of it, half of the fun and half of the journey.
Definitely. And so you said you've been the Shin for your Burning Man crew for this is your 11th year?
Yeah, this is my 11th year. I've run Mythmaker for about 17 years, and 11 years ago we came to Burning Man, and I performed in the Conclave twice before I created my own Conclave with Mythmaker. And then I've been running the Mythmaker Conclave for, I think it's 9 years now. So I think last year I heard that I was, somebody at the council meeting said that I was the longest running consistent Shin. So I take that because I'm a triple earth sign and super stubborn. I just don't quit. So even maybe when sometimes I should. But yeah, it's good to see, overcoming those challenges and, and rising to new functionality and fun and levels. And this year's really been a gift in that. The last 2 or 3 years have been extremely challenging. And then this year with the community that we have and the delegation and the team and the council at Mythmaker has really made it functional, made it amazing. So probably my first burn and this burn were my two favorites. So I've been calling it my 11th burn because I spent so much time with the camp and the show and everything else that I didn't even prepare myself for Burning Man this year. I showed up in ripped up tabby boot shoes and, no meal plan or no planning, just grab stuff at the grocery store on the way and was like, okay, I'll eat dust if I have to. And so yeah, it's been fun and we've been taking care of each other. So it's good to have a family, have a tribe.
Where would you want to see the Fire Council or even the Fire Village grow to in the next couple of years?
I mean, seeing the evolution and the growth of it and what the Conclave Council does and puts in, I mean, they're such an amazing team. So such good communication and same camaraderie and family there. And yeah, I see more and more each year the Shins, those who lead the Conclave groups, becoming friends and knowing each other and collaborating and working together. So I'd love to see more of an evolution of a fire village where a lot of us camp together and we, share traits and skills, but also share our shows with each other, because that's one of the unfortunate scenarios of Burning Man is it's the largest fire show in the world. We've got 28 groups of up to 50 people in each group, so approximately 1,500 fire spinners all performing at the same time in 28 groups around the circle before the man burns. It's an anomaly of amazing proportion. And unfortunately, a little bit of the challenge of that is we don't get to see each other's shows unless there's some sort of scheduled performance at Burning Man at a different time that's hard to get to and hard to find. We never really see our comrades, our peers perform and shine in their art. So if we had a little bit more of a combined fire village, we could have different nights where, they're full, what we do is a Thursday night mandatory Mythmaker party. And that's what I say with everybody in Mythmaker. If you're coming to the burn Thursday night, it's Mythmaker night. And, we put the music on, we do our full show, full dress rehearsal, we do our show for us and the photographers. And so we have that time where it's our final dress rehearsal and we just have fun with it. And it'd be amazing to have something like that in a village where each of the conclaves got to have their practice night or a night where we all shared our shows one after another and we could all see each other's shows and really experience each other's magic that we bring here.
It would be, yeah, because we're all spread out on this on the edges of this grid of a rectangular square, but it would be nice if we opened up the village in the middle and made a center cul-de-sac area where all the stages faced out, or maybe we shared a stage, and then we could have the rehearsed fire shows every single night of the week, and it would create even stronger of a place for people to go, oh, we're going to the fire village tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to catch out the routines, and that's definitely true, because even when the man burns, just where do you stand to watch it? Which fire troop do you watch?
Yeah.
Because they're all amazing to get there. It's incredible. Let's see. So over the last 17 years, you've been going to Burning Man. Which do any
11 for the burn. And
11 for the
17
burn,
for
17
Mythmaker.
Are there any that particularly stick out in your mind? As,
This one, that's for sure.
Yeah, why is that?
I mean, this year I've just had such a community and such a team. And, it's been challenging being the leader of both, a theater company, a camp, a conclave, all of these things. And so often, I'll either do it myself or in the last couple of years rely on people that aren't really reliable. And so it's been a dance of like, when do you delegate? Because if you delegate and the person doesn't do it, then things fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year it's been really amazing having people that have worked through Mythmaker through the years, that have been trained and, evolved their art through our interaction, have really come together and stepped up. And so my assistant Shin, Tyree, he's just an amazing organizer, and he could easily be running his own conclave, and I'm honored to have him as my assistant Shin, or we've been joking as assistant cult leader.
Uh-huh.
Where are we going now, assistant cult leader? But yeah, having someone with that much skill offering what they have to the grander whole, when he could lead his own show, and he's there in support of Mythmaker and what we do because he believes in the vision, he believes in that community and family. And where I can be a real visionary, a real creator, a real, tapper into the mystical and the divine, I'm also a real surfer of chaos in the realms of like, I don't know how we're going to do what we're going to do, I just know we're going to do it. And we move forward, and it happens. And so to have somebody that has the charts and the flow charts and the other things that to document and make a linear aspect of that has really brought things to another level. And then having like a build team like Jesse Bird and like Jimbo and these guys, and Drew, that, there's like key core members that are like just like solid members that all of a sudden I'm like, hey, let's build a dragon stage on the top of my bus. And,
And they go, okay.
Yeah, those guys
How
are
big?
out there till midnight, like drilling away, like annoying the neighbors. And like all of a sudden there's a giant scaffolding dragon stage on my bus that, for me, it'd be a couple cool, wood cut out dragons and some duct tape. But with these guys, they're like, hammering it out, drilling metal, drilling wood, and all of a sudden we got a Viking ship on the top of my bus. And it's the collaboration of that vision, that village, that group of people, that when we all come together, we create something so much more than any one of us could create. And so this year I've really seen the team step up and be a family and community in that way. And it's an honor, it's a privilege to know these guys and have these guys and gals in our crew.
I want to ask you two questions. If you could briefly tell me, what are the duties of a Shin? Because we've talked about that role a lot, and as you said, we just found out you're the longest running Shin, so I think no one better should be able to talk and look back on it. And then, what advice would you give for current Shins or people looking to become a Shin maybe next year for 2020?
I mean, part of the responsibilities of a Shin are that, you have the responsibility of not necessarily being invited, because you're offering we put in our audition video, we put in our request to perform our show before the man burns. And for me, that's a great honor and a great privilege to be blessed to do that. And to me, as who I am, that's a ceremony. It's it's an offering into this community. And so it's the grandest gift that before the biggest event and scenario that happens here, we get to offer our art, our expression, our ceremony. And so as a Shin, it's being that leader, it's being that visionary, it's being that guide. And in the older aspect of leader, not the leader takes control and does what they want, more as a leader, you're a servant to your people, to your group, to your scenario, and it's a lot of work. It's not a paid job. It's a passion project. It's a labor of love. And so a lot of Shins get burnt out because we've come from a culture that doesn't really know how to organize in the tribal way anymore. So yeah, a lot of the advice I'd have is, build your team. It's a lot for one person to take on. It's really too much for one person to take on. And you want to have your friends, your crew, people you can rely on to delegate and to build a group and a team. And this year, was my easiest year, and that is, even choreographing the show. I usually and the lead choreographer in our shows. And this year there was enough people that have been in Mythmaker long enough and in the family long enough and are pro enough that I handed out each choreography to different people. And I just came in as kind of the artistic director, and I would no, a little less of that, a little more of this. What do you try one of these? But really, they took it and they did it, and we got the review from the from the council that they thought it was our best show we ever did, and it was because same thing. Everyone got to put more love and more care and more personal energy into that scenario. So the more you can share the load, share the burden, is definitely makes it more efficient and makes it a grander whole piece.
And I mean, it's no simple task to organize a group of performers or divas or really extroverted people.
Yeah, the burner herding.
The burner herding, that's a good term for it.
One of my skills is burner herding. It's definitely like herding 50 cats. It's interesting.
And if you ever worked in theater or any type of performance or with bands, you definitely know that they are some eccentric people. Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that you help keep that in control or keep the ADD in focus?
I mean, one of it is being a really solid, grounded leader. Like that's, I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried group by consensus. I've tried councils. I've tried, different scenarios. And Mythmaker started with, me as the visionary and the leader. And yeah, I found it really, to have someone that has that discerning edge, to have someone to say, this is amazing. Yes, you're, rewarded, and no, this isn't cool. And I think that's a lot of what we're missing in our counterculture, in our, kind of left-wing artistic counterculture is, without leaders, without, the people that are there to say, wait a minute, this isn't okay, you get things going on that's, not really healthy. And it's, it's been one of my challenges as a leader to, I'm the gatekeeper. And in that, I get the brunt of it. There's people that hate me out there. There's people that think I'm the devil. Like there's people that slander me publicly still because I've given them so many chances because I'm here to help people evolve, help people learn and grow and, grow up and learn up and live in community and do art together again. But if they're toxic, if they're putting other people down, if they just don't know how to interact in a really vibrant artistic way, then we try and guide them and help teach them how to do that. But if not, at some point in time, I have to be the person that says, you can't play with us anymore. You're hurting people, or people aren't comfortable to express themselves around you. And it's really challenging because when you're creating something as beautiful and amazing and new as what we're creating, and people are uninvited from that, there's a lot of rage and there's a lot of challenge. And usually in that situation, if you're uninvited, it's because you've got issues and challenges already. So that's been one of the things I'm trying to figure out how to navigate and learn because, once again, I'm a human being. I like to be liked. I like to have, to be looked at in a good way in the community and with people, and to have people that just viciously hate who I am because I've said, you can't play with this, to create a safe container. And, the feedback I get from the crew is therapeutic. Like, they're just like, this is their passion. This is what makes them happy in life. This is what cures their anxiety, their depression, their isolation, is having this old tribal root system of this, fire crew, this theater crew. And in that, I've had to create a safe container. And so, it's something, to have someone to do that is a powerful thing. And to be the person that does that is a big responsibility and, a challenge and a burden at times. And that's, one of my challenges, and the benefits of seeing this family, at the same time, I'm also a target. So it's, it's challenging, but it's worth it. I'll do it,
Yeah.
Haters going to hate.
I definitely agree that fire spinning can be incredibly therapeutic. You mentioned that ago. Do you have any things in life that you used fire spinning or fire might have helped you overcome?
I think it's just really empowering. Fire is, in the old ways, in the old Northern European ways, it's like fire is cleansing, fire is passion, fire is raw power and transformation. And it's funny because, on the esoteric side of things, a lot of people think I'm a fire sign. A lot of people think I'm a Leo when they meet me at first glance, and I'm actually a triple earth sign. It's this, it's the groundedness that I wield and weave that fire. I'm the earth wielding the fire, and in that, the amount of will and and just ability to make things happen and wield your own power is really amazing, and it's really empowering. And just seeing, I've taught fire spinning for 17 years, so I've lost count of how many people I put a torch or a sword or a staff in their hand for the first time, and to see them light up, like the magic of like, I am dancing with fire. I'm wielding this magical thing, and whether you're, whether you believe in magic or whether you're super, scientific and whatever, it's like you look at fire and there's a magic there. No matter how you describe that thing scientifically, there is something mystical and magical about that. And when you can wield and dance with that, it empowers you to a primal level, an animistic level. And, it's beautiful to see people really grasp that power and let it move their life forward in a way that helps them and heals them. So I'm super thankful for it. And it's great to see the kids get the fire in their hands and their eyes spark and light up.
Nice. So, what first brought you into the fire arts, or when did you decide this is the pursuit you wanted to take?
Once again, Mythmaker was founded from. I studied a lot of old traditions and old stories. My roots are Celtic and Nordic, and Romani Gypsy. So I'm very Northern European in my roots, and in my teenage years I actually was initiated and studied into traditional Scottish witchcraft coven. And so Mythmaker was actually not formed from theater. I never went to theater school, and I never learned, I don't know the theater words. I had to learn stage right and stage left, and I've got these actors that have gone and gotten their full university in theater, and then they come and work under me as a director, and they're like, how are you the director? You don't even know what these things are called. And I'm like, well, I'm a ritual director, not a theater director, and it's not that different. And so, yeah, I learned my roots from traditional, magic and things like that. And that's kind of where I brought Mythmaker forth from that. And then in the early days, when we were doing performances and enacting the old and ancient tales, fire was an element, and I'd seen some fire dancers, and spinning poi actually was the first thing that I saw. And then a really good friend of mine, Jenny B, she invented a fire sword. We'd never seen a fire sword before then. This was like 16, 17 years ago, and I was a sword guy. I've always loved swords since I was a kid, and I've trained myself in a lot of different martial arts and sword techniques. And when I saw her light up that fire sword, I was like, that's for me. The poi looks neat, and I love the way the fire weaves around, but when I saw that first fire sword light up, I was like, I could wield a pair of those and just feel the magic in my hands of fire and the art that I know how to dance with. And so, that was kind of the first early rendition. And I wrote a Celtic story where it was to the 4 different elements, and the main character, Angus MacOg, faced the Lord of Fire, and so we had a fire sword duel, and we made those fire swords, and and ever since it's been kind of a theme in Mythmaker. I've got like 13 contact boom swords in my bus right now. Somebody was like, who are all the boom swords? And we filled them with the lycopodium powder, so they're like pyrotechnics at the end swords. And somebody saw it for the first time this week here at Burning Man, and they were like, whose boom swords are those? And I was like, oh, those are mine. And she was like, oh, how many do you have? I'm like, I think there's like 13 back there. And so other people in the crew have them as well, but in Mythmaker we probably got about 30 fire swords within the crew itself, so it's a little bit of a sword thing. Dragons and swords are kind of part of what we do.
That's fantastic. Now, I heard you're also in a band. Do you incorporate into your fire art into your band or in your band's performances?
Yes, that's kind of been the interesting scenario of the evolution of Mythmaker, and The Weirding Way is my band.
What's The Weirding Way?
The Weirding Way, and we're kind of like ancient tribal, like Viking, Celtic, Middle Eastern music mixed with like modern psychedelic rock, like Tool and The Doors and Led Zeppelin and that. So we've got the modern aspect of that rock energy, but then we've got the old world instruments like hurdy-gurdies and violins and bouzouki's and female vocals. And it was an interesting full circle in that I started as a musician, And when I was younger and working with magic and medicines and psychedelics, I was always the person in the 4-piece like metal rock band that wanted to do the Pink Floyd The Wall kind of thing. Like my visions were always way too big for a 4-piece rock band.
We need a giant blimp, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I moved out west, and my band broke up on the way out west. And when I came out here, I started Mythmaker and did more ritual theater and kind of wrote the music and was the narrator. And then after about 10 years of that, we headlined the big Earth Dance Festival in California with one of our midnight ceremonies. And I realized, Michael Franti, we went on after Michael Franti had like headlined to like over 10,000 people, and everyone loved what we did. But Michael Franti is on tour getting paid tons of, money and sustaining his scenario, and we got paid like $500 for 27 of us to do a giant rock opera.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we doing wrong here? There's like, something in this equation isn't working. And that's when I realized like, oh, this actually needs to be a band again. And so that's where the Weirding Way has come forth, in that there is a deep mystical music. There is a deep mystical element of lyric and song, and something you can take home and have that experience on your own, which I realized the bands had that we didn't have as a fire crew or a sacred theater crew. And so to merge those principles, and that's kind of where the Weirding Way is almost like Mythmaker 2.0. So I take what we have here in Black Rock City or at home in Vancouver, and we have the giant fire performance, and then when the band The Weirding Way plays, it's a full merger of those two. So we have like anywhere from 7 to 27 performers and ritual artists with the 7-piece band, and when we do the full thing, we like headline a festival, and people have never seen anything like it. Like, it's just different. It's kind of like Pink Floyd The Wall meets Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. So
It is amazing how some of the most captivating performances is definitely music art and visual expression art and dance. And fire spinning really does seem to just culminate all that together with this danger element. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I almost joke about it like it's like NASCAR, and that like nobody wants to see anyone get hurt, but you kind of want to know the fire's rear, and seeing an accident is just as exciting.
Yeah. And it is. It's very exciting, and it's like most of the circus arts that we weave and wield in Mythmaker, it's not as dangerous as we think, but the danger is there. As long as you have the respect to realize, and this is what I tell new fire spinners. It's like, what I need to teach you is how to not get burned. Your dance is your dance. Your fire is your fire. Your relationship with this fire is your own. All I'm here to do is teach you how to not get burned, how to respect the magic of the flame, and then you take whatever tool you want, whatever form you want, whatever dance you want, and you move in your way. Just respect the fire and don't get burned. And and it's served me well over 17 years. I think I have burnt myself 3 times. I burnt myself last night. I picked up the cauldron in our, shapeshifter scenario, and I had leather gloves on, and the cauldron was so hot I actually burnt my thumb through the leather glove. And it was kind of the joke in the crew because I was sucking my thumb while the man burned. And I was like, I quit. I burnt my thumb, And it's not even a blister or anything like that, but it was, it got me. It took a little nip. But then the funny thing is that happened, and then we were given a shorter space this year. It was a different dynamic in the circle this year. And so what we had been practicing with our show was larger than the space that we had been given. And so we had to figure out how to set our fuel station with our giant fire show. And with the wind and all the giant tools we had, at the end of our show, when someone went to put out their tool in the duvetine, we didn't realize how...
That's the fire safety towel.
Yeah, the towel that's fireproof, and that the wind had caught the fumes from the naphtha fuel that we use, and actually it was a vapor fire that actually caught from the tool that was about 10 feet or more, 10, 15 feet away from the fueling station. It actually traveled downwind and caught our whole fuel station on fire last night.
Oh, man.
And so at the end of our chaos, so our whole show had finished, and at the end of a conclave show, you have chaos, which is a free jam until, they say, we're done, the man's going to burn. And so at that point in time, I was right there, and our half of our fuel station completely went up in flames. And I've seen that, over 17 years, I've seen this happen about 3 times. And I think it's really uncanny in my relationship with fire that every time my initial instinct is to actually dive into the flaming fire station to try and get the things out that could explode or could really cause a bigger problem. So here I am in the middle of performing at the end of our show, and luckily I've got my leather pants on. Thanks, Jim Morrison. But diving into the flaming fueling station with fueled fire swords in one hand and then my leather glove in the other, and I grabbed about 6 different things out of the fuel station, and then Tyree, my assistant Shin, did the same thing and was in the fuel station getting all the dangerous things out, and my glove caught on fire. So I've got fueled fire swords in one hand that could light up at any moment, and a glove on fire in the other. And I looked to him and I'm like, take off my glove, it's on fire. And he's like, but my pants are on fire. I'm like, that's okay, take off my glove. So he takes off my flaming glove while his pants are on fire, while our techs, take it out with the fire extinguishers, and then got the whole thing under control within a minute and a half. The whole thing was under control. My team was so versed and so ready for an emergency like that to happen. That was very unexpected, and got it under control. And then I lit my fire swords and went out and finished doing chaos and did a full performance with the fire swords I had in my hand the whole time this fuel station was on fire. And then we had to decompress, and a lot of the techs were concerned because that's the last thing you ever want to happen. And so they were kind of concerned that I was going to be upset with the scenario, and and for me I was like, no, you all did phenomenally. Like, no one was at fault. It was we could have used more space, we could have planned it a little better, and we now know have it even further because of wind and vapor and things like that. But the response of that team and nobody getting hurt was a badge of honor, and it's adrenaline. It's, there we are. We're grounded. We're keeping things safe. We're doing things right. That when a mistake or an emergency like that happens, there's a team ready to do it. And that's the professionalism of fire spinning. And I think that's something as a culture, and as, not just Burning Man, but our own crews, we need to start to look at, is making sure it's just not a bunch of drunken, disrespectful people lighting things on fire and making a bad reputation for the professional fire spinners that are there for the art, for the magic, for the unfolding. So,
that is to say that, it's incredibly important to always do have a fire safety with you.
Exactly.
Just to maintain the respect of the art, even if you've spun hundreds of times and it's in your backyard. You don't want to build bad habits, and you don't want to put people unease if they don't need to be. And
training. I mean, it's just, we've lost a lot of that in this culture. Like the old world, you would apprentice and you would train, and we've lost a lot of that in this scenario. And in just our Western culture scenario. And, with fire spinning, it's a similar thing. It's like when I train a fire spinner, I teach them how to not get burned. And when our fire leads teach the fire techs, they teach them how to deal with emergencies. They teach them how to deal with panic. They teach them how to deal with big things on fire. And it was, as much as we would never wish it, it was a perfect example of that last night, where our crew came in and dealt with it professionally, immediately. And even I heard some of the council members saw it happen and were actually impressed with how quickly our crew responded and put out what could have been a disaster, and no one got hurt. And from what I heard, most of the audience didn't even realize it happened. So yeah, good training is key. It's a desirable thing to spin fire and to be a part of that. And I would suggest people, find everyone's stoked to teach. It's great to pass that torch. So find people that know what they're doing and do it with respect to pass that torch off, to learn this art, because it's an empowering art. But you want someone that knows what they're doing so that you learn properly.
Unfortunately, I've never seen a fuel station light on fire. I'm curious, what steps have you taught your people to take as far as first response between towels, fire extinguishers, pulling flaming fuel cans out of the burning container with your bare hand? Like, what would you say would be a disaster plan?
We generally use duvetine, which is a flame retardant fabric that they use in photography. It's great. One of the challenges with duvetine is if you're doing a large show and you're putting props out before your prop is fully extinguished on its own, then the prop has fuel on it. So the more you use the duvetine, it will absorb some of the fuel. And as much as the duvetine is non-flammable, the fuel within it is flammable. So that's something to be careful of. And, maybe having a rotation of duvetine in larger shows and things like that. And one of our, experiences last night was, the idea that flame can, like with naphtha especially, because it evaporates, it's a very safe fuel, which is why we use it. It's one of the most non-toxic fuels, and it's very safe. If you spill it on your hand or even on the ground, it'll evaporate. But in that evaporation, there's fumes. So that was the challenge of last night, is there was a lot of evaporation and wind, and we didn't plan accordingly for the distance of how far a gas vapor with wind can travel. But we had a slew of fire extinguishers on hand and trained professionals in that scenario. So what I always tell people is, like, never using a fire extinguisher on a human being. If it's an emergency, if it's a non-fire performer, it's not in a show, it's a different story. But fire extinguishers are for when things are on fire. If the tree is on fire, if the fire station is on fire, you need your fire extinguishers there, ready, and have your people know how to use them. If a person is on fire because of fire performing, it's usually very small. Most of them can put it out themselves, and most of them can be handled with a tech just patting with Duvetine really quickly. So that's a part of our contingency plans. And Ryan Markle, Bonefinder, Jen Wren, they're three of our amazing tech leads this year. I've got a team of people on this, and Bonefinder's amazing in teaching panic, and I've even schooled her a couple times in the park, because I'm like, don't scream in the park, we're gonna freak out the normals. But she'll train her new fire techs on someone actually freaking out with a fire tool coming towards a fire tech, and so she'll play panic the scenario so that they're used to, if someone's in a different state with it, that they know how to calmly respond. And that kind of training paid off last night. There was no emergency in a potentially dangerous situation that similar fire spinning and fire dancing in general. If you're respectful, if you're properly trained, it's very rarely anybody gets burned. It's very rarely there is any danger to it, because you know how to respect the boundaries of that fire. So it's key. It's key to train that, and it's key to be professional with that. And I would like to see a little more, awareness around that in the fire community. Because even in Vancouver, like, we've dealt with authorities, we've dealt with rangers and and police and stuff like that. Because sometimes there's people in the park that are just, having a bunch of beers and spinning some fire and like woohoo, and it's the police show up, and that's a bad reputation for professional fire performers. And we've got 50 people in the park with giant flaming dragons, and I have the police show up, and when they do, I come up as the director, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and how can I help you, officer? And they're like, oh, we just like to watch the show. It's that professionalism, that that respect, that accountability that we need to keep within our community, because with all the fires going on in North America, it's something we really need to be cautious with, and really need to be seen as a responsible, respectful community that's really cautious with this potentially dangerous thing that we're playing with.
That's really good advice. Well, I want to know, is there anything else you want to talk about or would like to say in regards to fire arts in general? Anything on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, other than, just this community, this culture, this city of Black Rock City, and those that organize it and put their life into making this experience possible for the humans out there, it's an honor to be a part of it. It's an honor to see the way these people give their lives to this experience so that other people can learn and grow. And, from so many aspects of this city and what it teaches humans, and how I've seen people personally evolve and level up in their life from this, from not just the Fire Conclave, which is close to 1,500 fire performance, the largest fire performance in the world, to the art here. It's also the largest art gallery in the world. I'd heard that a couple of years ago. I'd never thought of it like that. Burning Man is the largest art gallery in the world.
That's exactly how I heard it explained. It's that when you have this giant white platform of dust for miles, you can put big art on it, and it has the space to sit and to breathe and to have the mountains in the background. And then every single thing we bring here, even the people, it's all art.
Yeah, and it's that canvas. The playa is like a blank canvas. And, that's one of the things when I first came, 11 years ago, and other people that I've heard knew, they're like, oh, why do they burn it all? Why do they tear it down? Like, you built so much here, you could, build something from it. And it's like, Well, it's like those, I think it's the Tibetan sand paintings or whatever that they wash away afterwards. It's like we have this blank canvas and we build this art upon it, and it's fresh and new every time. And we don't, we leave it without a trace when we go. But when we come, we build our art, our expression, our fire, and the art here is interactive. Not only is it the largest art gallery in the world, most of the art here you can interact with and climb on and play with, and and so it's a really amazing space. And I think it's some sort of anomaly that this has come forth and come through, that there's nothing else like it in the world. And what it creates and inspires and transforms for people is really magical. And I don't know where it's headed, but I'm glad glad and honored to be a part of it. That's for sure.
It is, and you do get to even become a part of these art pieces. For people who have never experienced Burning Man, one of the things we're talking about is how people will build these gigantic human heads and sculptures and buildings and windmills and other devices, and you can all out of wood, and you can climb on them, and they have messages, and people will take Sharpies and art and flowers and letters, and they'll leave them, and they'll write all over the pieces, and then sometime Friday to Sunday, they burn it all down, and everyone gathers, and you get to watch this giant, playground that you just were jumping and taking photos on and having a great time go up in flames, and it's gone. It's only in your memories after that point. And there's something really, really powerful about seeing something from creation to end, and you get that so much out here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing, strange, rare, anomalous thing. One of my oldest friends and earliest Mythmaker performers, Mochi, who's been to 20 some odd burns. Like he beats me in the race. One of the things he said to the crew a year or two ago, he said it's really interesting in the journey of Burning Man. Like once you come, you kind of everyone that's alternative in any way or wants to experience something different should prepare themselves and check it out. And for some people, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and that was the neat time they went to Burning Man. And for others, they drink the Kool-Aid, and you're a burner. And, you come here and you see what it is and what it gives to your life and others, and it gets you. And, I mean, it's gotten me, that's for sure. And so Mochi explained it as, after, his, I don't even know how many years of being here, it's like a chapter in a book of a different life. Each burn is like a different chapter in your Burning Man book of your life. And it's like your default world life goes on and is influenced and rippled by what happens here. But then after you've been to so many burns, it's just kind of like the story starts up again, right where it left off. And you have all these different chapters in your Burning Man experience, your Burning Man life. You're the star in your show of all this interactive adventure that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world in any sort of way like it. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
Very, very well said. Well, thank you for speaking with me, Hjeron. I definitely think people would be interested to see some of your video recordings of your performances. Where's the best place people can find that?
We're working on the social media aspect as I surf the chaos of my creativity and figure out how to navigate actually getting people to see what we do out in that digital realm. On Facebook, we've got a Mythmaker group on Facebook and a Mythmaker page. We just started the Mythmaker Instagram, which is like Mythmaker Official on Instagram. Hjeron, Hjeron, is me. And up until recently, I've just personally done it all on my own personal things, because I don't really know the social media realm. I'm more performing. But yeah, so basically Facebook is where a lot of it has been done. Mythmaker.ca is our semi-outdated website.
Excellent.
And
everybody bookmark that.
Yeah, mythmaker.ca is in Canada. And then the Weirding Way, WYRDING Way, is the band, where that's kind of the culmination of all the grander vision of it all turns into this giant flaming rock opera that's pretty different, pretty amazing.
And
so,
do you know where your next performance is going to be?
Yeah, we're as the Weirding Way and Mythmaker, so the whole spiel, the whole package.
Oh, you tour it all together.
Generally, that's what I try and do. If we get booked specifically as Mythmaker, specifically as Weirding Way, then there's a little bit of overlap. But generally, I try and now book it as a full, interactive theatrical musical experience. And so in Vancouver, BC, we'll be performing at the Parade of Lost Souls, which is an amazing scenario in Vancouver where the entire East Vancouver section turns into a giant interactive parade. And for the last 4 years, we've headlined that parade at its end, where you're in the parade is you. You don't watch the parade, you participate in the parade and go through interactive art all through Vancouver, giant spider webs and Michael Jackson Thriller dances and all these things. And at the end, there's this giant field and a big stage, and we get to do our full
So it's
stage
like
show.
a street of the city becomes almost an art gallery.
Yeah, it's a giant street party. It's a giant Halloween street party. So everyone dresses up, and then we're blessed and honored to headline that. So that's our
when
next
is that?
big show. I think that's November 2nd. They just shifted the date on a little bit.
Okay.
But I think November 2nd is when we'll be headlining that.
And is that a public event?
And it's fully public, fully free in Vancouver. And we're also, right now, my main focus is Europe. We've toured, the west coast of North America with my Greenhorn tour bus here for years. So we really want to bring this magic over to Europe and do a European tour. So we're very open to invites and connections in the European scene, because every time people see us, they say, Europe would eat you up. They would just love this thing you do.
Well, I guess you're going to have to put the bus on top of the Viking ship then and get over there.
Yeah, maybe we'll need a real Viking ship to sail the crew across the sea, and
that would be a stage.
Bus onto there.
You could take landing and invade with your fire show.
Little Viking pirate action.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Hjeron. Thank you for talking to me and being on All Things Fire. It was great meeting you, and
and a
I'm
pleasure,
looking
my friend.
forward to burning with you tonight.
Yeah. We're gonna have a party at our place tonight after the temple burns. We're gonna go back and have a big burn barrel and all the dragons and light up the stage. And if the wind dies down, we're gonna burn our gold dragon from last year that's now on top of my bus, and just have a big family fire jam. So people are welcome to come and jam. And I think we might play the new Tool album really loud, right under the playa, and a bunch of Viking music, traditional Viking music and fire. And we've got a keg of mead that we need to finish off. Come help us finish our keg of mead.
I'm definitely going to help you finish the keg of mead. And hopefully the video won't be too shaky, but I'll try and capture some of that for you guys. I'm listening right now. So
looking forward to it.
Thank you again.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for what you do.
If you want to support the All Things Fire podcast, head on over to patreon.com and search for Morgan Floki. Thank you for all your support, travelers. Have a great day.